Good to be with you, Tim.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
You too.
How are you, for starters?
I'm very good. I'm very well. I'm doing really well at the moment, and just loving life and loving all of the gifts and treasures and gold that's coming its way, and just all the ebbs and flows, and just enjoying the ride.
Awesome.
What it is.
Yeah, I've been loving observing what you've been up to. We haven't really hung out like this at all, so thank you for trusting and just diving in, and what a great way to do it,
100%. Well, thank you, brother, for inviting.
Welcome.
And for bringing me here, and deeply honoured and grateful, so thank you.
You're welcome. Let's dive into, I want to ask you about your men's work that you've been doing. I've been really in awe and appreciating that work. It feels really crucial for our current time, for men to have that kind of support and encouragement. So could you talk a little bit about what's going on with all that?
Yeah, 100%. So I began working with men just over 2 years ago, and it actually kind of came through first when I was doing a Pedro journey in Peru a few years back, and I met these two Polish brothers that were working with brothers, and then they were holding this space during this ceremony, and just this vision had come through of working with brothers, but it didn't really come into fruition until like a couple of years later. And at the point in time, I was working with some different people, and some of the women were asking, like, where's the work for men? And that was really a big push for me to be like, okay, well, now's the time to really push through and open up the space and help brothers drop deep into themselves. So I originally created a course called Return of the King, and it began as a 5-week course. And I kind of just asked myself, what were the deepest things that really changed me and helped me drop into myself and helped me kind of do the inner work? And that was learning about the archetypes, the main masculine archetypes, doing depth work, going into shadow work, doing inner child work, learning about sacred sexuality. And I just formulated a course, and each week was based on different archetype, and we're going to different embodiment practices. And I really wanted to help brothers get out of their minds and into their bodies and allow them to feel and feel safe to express what was close to their hearts. After running the first 5-week course, I realised that it needed to be a lot longer, so I had done it for 8 weeks. I just had too much information all at once to go through, so we were doing that for 8 weeks, and ran that for maybe about 18 months, and then throughout working with men, and I've kind of felt this over a number of years, is that one of the main energies that men really suppress, or they just in a very, very unhealthy state, and that's the energy of the warrior. And teaching men how to actually harness that warrior energy and how to transmute that into daily life. And I found that most men were either overly expressive in that way, and it was coming out through bouts of rage and violence and destruction, or it was so deeply suppressed that they were just being walked all over, and they were full people pleasers. So I created a course called Invictus, which is 6 weeks, but there's 9 sessions within that 6 weeks. So there's 3 Sunday sessions. So one of the Sundays is a sweat lodge, another one is a physical breakthrough session, and the third one is a ice bath, purely to help kind of break through those mental barriers, those physical barriers, those energetic and spiritual barriers as well, to allow them to see what they're actually capable of in these spaces. And then throughout the course, we do, I think, about 3 really deep breathwork sessions to help break them through limiting beliefs, help them to process through their anger, sadness, any kind of old emotional wounds that might be suppressed deeply within their being, allowing that to come out through the breathwork. And then we do a lot of each, like 30 minutes of every session, we get them, I was teaching them martial arts or some self-defense exercises. I used to fight. I fought Muay Thai for about 8 years until I hurt my neck. So I was teaching them how to grapple, teach them how to wrestle, and just getting them to tap into that warrior energy through physical exercise in that way. And it's incredible to see what it brings out in men, that primal energy. And there's something beautiful about when 2 men wrestle, 2 men become have that kind of physical contact in that sense of wrestling and challenging each other, but not trying to overpower the person, but trying to, or guiding each other and assisting each other and lifting each other up through that. So you're essentially like helping them by putting them under that undue stress, and they trying to, work through that. And you're not trying to like overpower them, but lift them up at the same time. And it's incredible to see. And we do like one-on-ones, we do like 2-on-1s, and we just do like some big free-for-all kind of things. Everyone's just like wrestling, and it's incredible to watch. And
it's awesome. What a potent combo, man.
Yeah,
good work.
Yeah, thank you.
We need that.
Yeah.
We need that as men. I think what's pretty common, very common in the whole spiritual scene is that of suppressing those more primal urges, and it gets nasty, it gets messy, it gets really toxic when those natural parts of our manhood are denied. So good on you for really keeping it comprehensive. That sounds really in depth and fully integral, which I really appreciate. Good work, huh?
Thank you. Yeah, it's incredible. It's one of my most favorite things to do is to work with men in this state and through these processes. And one of the things is that like allowing men to feel safe, to feel vulnerable in their emotions without losing that deep masculine core. And I find that through some of the men's work that's happened over the years, and this is over like 20, 30 years, is that they enter into like the feminine essence of getting into their emotional state, which is beautiful, but sometimes they're losing that deep masculine core. So it's learning how to contain that masculine core by still staying open and vulnerable and being practiced to stay open in that experience and breathing in and feeling safe in that openness so that they can stay in that open state for longer and they can be more grounded and they can create more depth within themselves. And then by doing so, they're creating more connections, deeper connections with their partners, with their family, with their friends. And it's incredible.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you mentioned something about San Pedro helped drive through that work.
Yes. When was it? Maybe 3 or something years ago. I took my first journey to Peru, and I went purely because I was really, really depressed, and I was suicidal, had suicidal tendencies, and I knew I didn't want to speak to a psychologist or a counselor or anything like that. I just knew that it wasn't the right thing for me, and I'd heard about ayahuasca. So I took my first trip to the jungle, and my old man ended up coming with me, and we sat about 8 times in the jungle together.
That's awesome. Father and son, that is amazing. Wow.
We had a really deep healing together.
Cool.
It was so beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and then so he left, and I stayed on. I ended up journeying with Pedro at the end of my journey. And that was just incredible. And, Pedro's a masculine spirit, and the guidance he gets is very strong and stern. And this is it. This is what you're meant to be doing. And Pedro actually reconnected me with my gift with playing the yadaki with the didge, and was like, you need to go back and you need to learn more. And then I ended up coming into contact with a indigenous man like a Noongar, who was teaching me the healing side of the didge. But with this Pedro journey, it was my first Pedro journey that I sat in, and it was one of the most incredible experiences. And throughout the whole trip, I'd done a heap of plant medicine, and it was like this big congratulatory experience, this big opening of love and connection to the earth, and connecting me deep into the earth. And then I was just I was seeking guidance on where I should be heading in life. Then when I met these 2 Polish brothers, they were telling me about their stuff, and I was getting it was like this seed was being born deep within my core, within my soul. And and then I just having this vision of these men's circles. I didn't really think much of it at the time, and it took about 2 years to kind of come into fruition. And the same thing happened with when I started with cacao. Like, I had this vision of using all these sacred sounds to take people on journeys. I didn't know how it was going to form, but it ended up formulating like 2 years later. Pedro was incredible. Like, I've sat with Pedro maybe about 5 times. I know only a little bit, but the experiences I've had with Pedro have been absolutely life-changing. So clear, so direct, and just very, very, very powerful. and a lot of respect for that plant for sure.
Yeah, likewise. Prior to becoming a father, Joe and myself, we were both going quite deep with ayahuasca, doing that quite regularly, especially during that period between 2008 to 2012, like really quite regularly. Joe was going down to the jungle quite a lot. I was going up into the hills quite a lot. And it was incredible. It was really a beautiful time of going so deep into my feminine. The ayahuasca felt like an experience of really healing a lot of the feminine aspects of myself, and just the spontaneity of it, the radical multi-dimensionality of it was so beneficial for me. It felt like preparation for becoming a beautiful father for all these two girls and a powerhouse wife. Like, it felt like it got me really comfortable with the feminine, like powerhouse feminine, Shakti. And then since having kids, I haven't felt that drawn to being with ayahuasca. Maybe once a year or something like that, to really just, I love her. It's a great relationship. She's an amazing teacher plant, and it's incredible. There's nothing quite like it. Yet I have felt more naturally drawn to San Pedro. I felt it's really helped me tune up my role as being a father and being a lover and being a husband, and bringing in, quote unquote, the new way, the new paradigm, the new masculine, these ways that are kind of uncharted. It's kind of new terrain for us. It's been a old way for so long until relatively recently. So to bring in those strong old primal instincts of a man and to fine tune it and merge it with the feminine, I feel it's helped me with that indescribably, to help me clarify and attune the masculine and be more present than ever. So I've also got a really beautiful relationship with the plants, and in particular San Pedro. I mean, the house is surrounded by San Pedro, as you probably noticed. But I definitely have found in the plant medicine community that without these other practices, they can become potentially toxic, just like any medicine, but can potentially be over abused, and the positive aspects of it can quickly turn into negative. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely feel that as well. And traditionally ayahuasca was used as a diagnostic tool by the shamans, by the curanderos.
Just the shaman would have it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they would diagnose the patient, and they would give them whatever plants or trees or herbs that they needed to take to heal their body, or to heal their spirit, or heal their mind. And then it wasn't until later then the patient started drinking ayahuasca as well. But ayahuasca is a teacher plant, and she has an incredible ability to heal us, and she has healed me in many ways, but she's also shown me so many other ways that I need to be doing the work. And you go and you sit in ceremony, but then the ceremony is really beginning once you leave that sacred space. And she's kind of showing, she'll be like, this is where might be living in alignment with your higher self, or with your soul purpose. And you might need to shift away from this work, or you might need to shift away from these people. And if you don't leave and you don't continually do that work, and you keep going back searching for more answers, she'll either just put on a light show for you, show you like a really expensive movie, or she'll give you a big slap because you're not paying attention. And so the integration process after plant medicine is absolutely integral for anything, for you to really embody the teachings that come through with it. After my first trip away, I'd sat quite a few times of Aya, and it took me about 18 months to really integrate all the lessons and all the energy that I felt through that. But I can definitely see how people can start using it as a crutch, as a way to, I mean, it's amazing to ask for guidance, and then when you receive that guidance, but they can see that when people are using it as a crutch. And it was really interesting. So myself and my partner Sammy, will recently get back from Peru, and we're in the jungle for 4.5 weeks. We stay with the Shipibo Indian woman, and we were dieting lots of trees and plants while we were there. And then for those that aren't aware of what a plant dieta is or tree dieta is, the shaman will choose a plant or a tree that she believes is you need to work with, and you will go into the jungle. You'll scrape the bark of the tree. Sometimes you're using the leaves, sometimes you're using the roots, and then you'll make it up into some water so you connect with the plant. You're entering into like a sacred contract, and then you drink that plant. And the ones that she was giving us, I'd done plant diets before in the past, but they were like in isolation, where I was just sitting with one plant in isolation, just myself and the shaman. And then, but this lady, this curandero, she was just wanting to pump as many into us as possible. And we got to the point where our whole bodies were vibrating during the day, and would be passing out like in the morning. Sometimes we'd pass out like in the afternoon, just needing to rest and feeling these full vibrational shifts in us. And then would have to sit, and she was quite strict with her practice, but you had to like sit and meditate with the tree or with the plant. But one of the ones she got us to diet was the cacao tree. Because we'd mentioned that we work with cacao over here, and she said, it's beautiful that you're using the fruit of the cacao to journey people, but if you really want to strengthen your connection with this fruit of cacao, you must diet the bark. So we ended up dieting the tree of cacao for 3.5 weeks. I think Sammy done it just over, maybe 4. Maybe she done it for, I can't remember, around that time. But one of the lessons that came through was that that cacao was saying that she was feeling that the people of our world, of the West, are starting to use her as a crutch as well. So like if people are using it, like she's there to teach us connection, to bring us back to harmony, to help open up our hearts. But if we're only using her in that way to connect, then we've lost the point. So all these teacher plans that we have, they're all showing us, they're all tools to show us what's possible. And then it's for us to learn how to develop those skills and hone those skills so that we can connect to that with ourselves. And then the connection with the plant also deepens and also expands and also brings forth through that. But going back to what you were saying about using plant medicines like Ayahuasca or Pedro as like a crutch or allowing it to become toxic, I find that if there's no depth or there's no self-inquiry after the journeys, then we can definitely fall into that pattern. And the integration process is absolutely paramount. And I mean, not even for plant medicines, but I mean for people that do workshops, for people that go to retreats, if they're not integrating the lessons and embodying them, then they're just going to go from the seeking externally for what they're trying to grow internally. And they'll just become workshop junkies or plant medicine junkies and all of that. And I've definitely had some really strong ceremonies with ayahuasca where she's slapped me around a bit, and even in ceremony when someone else hadn't been following the right protocols, she was giving me their experience and saying, this is what you get when you don't, we're not following the path of integrity, and not following the path of honor through working with us. And it's a whole another world, but it's incredible for what it can gain for ourselves in this place. And even working with like Cambo as well has shifted my life incredibly. Working with Harpe has shifted incredibly as well. And just these sacred tools or these ancient ways and these indigenous ways that are coming back and are really allowing us to come back into this place of heart-based living and coming back into our truth and into our power, and to reclaim who we are in our own sovereignty of humans on the planet Earth, and going in from 3D mentality up into 5D mentality, and learning that we are truly the creators of our own reality, and we're here to lift ourselves and help lift the world, the vibration of the world up as we go through. And this collective evolution of consciousness is upon us, and it's so beautiful to be a part of this. Yeah.
Very similar situations that you just described of the crutch and whatnot. It arises in the yoga scene as well, like having the teacher on the pedestal and having the method as the crutch, and often one feeling like unless they're in that yoga room or that with that teacher, they can't experience the places of the heart that they experience when they're with that particular teacher or in that particular class. So even with the yoga context, there's a very similar situation where one needs to integrate with anything. If we've got that as a crutch, or we've got that teacher on the pedestal, I can only get high when I'm with them. I can only get high and in touch when I'm with that particular medicine. There's crutches left, right, and center. So it's like a process of, I remember Darpan speaking of, we drink the medicine to not drink the medicine, to not need it. Because all these states are within, and these are just keys and maps to unlock what's already here. Yet, if we don't get off that boat, so to speak, and we're just staying on that boat, seeking and seeking, it's never ending. It's just samsara upon samsara, and we have that brief fireworks show, or that brief peak experience. Anything can become an addiction, even the matcha, the chocolate, the cacao, the yoga class, the song, the whatever, huh?
Yeah, definitely. This what I teach with the brothers as well is the path to like true embodiment. So first we, intellectually or we logically understand a concept, and then where the process comes to integration of how that fits into our life. Like, is that true to who I am? And then you're consciously thinking about how I can act in a certain way and start to change those behavioral patterns. And then the path of embodiment comes after that, when you're no longer consciously thinking, I need to do this, but you've actually embodied it, and it's become an unconscious pattern that's actually serving you, not an unconscious pattern that's disserving you. It's that same thing. Hey, like, you finally got to find that power within rather than seeking it. Where can I get this from? Where can I get that next fix from? And realizing it's just that breathing. And like, I love Wim Hof's teachings, like get high on your own supply, and learning that basic breath work of 30 breaths and a breath hold 3 times or 5 times through, and really feeling that elevated state where you can really connect in deeply within yourself and take control of your body, your autonomic nervous system, and
totally. And you bring in the sweat lodges, the cold plunges. Do you feel like not only the physiological benefits and the benefits of focusing the mind, it's kind of a question and a statement. It seems like these types of intentional, uncomfortable moments, like getting intentionally uncomfortable, is really necessary, especially here where we can get so cushy and so complacent and just stuck in our comfort zone. To intentionally get cold, intentionally get hot, seems like these necessary kind of micro initiations to really step into our full strength.
100%. So one of the reasons I was wanting to do these like kind of deeper work with the guys is that we have no rite of passage for boys to men in our culture. Like, most of the time it's, you finish high school, you go to levers, everyone talks about how many girls they can hook up with or bang, and it's like how many beers you can scull and that kind of thing. And that shows how much of a man you are. And that's what our culture really kind of nurtures in a really unhealthy way. And so, but I firmly believe that if you look at through all the indigenous cultures, when through the rites of passage, one of the key elements is that there's a sense of death, and that might not be like a physical death, but it's a death of the self or of an old part of yourself. And so doing the sweat lodge definitely brings up that sense of death within the self, of feeling like you're not going to be able to make it through. You're going to die. You're going to pass out, and especially again when it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. And then same with the ice plunge. So the guys are in there for about 10 minutes. Some go a little bit more, and we're doing breath work while they're in there. And even while they're in that state, you're left with nothing but your mind, and your mind can go all kinds of places, like, I'm going to freeze to death, I'm going to get hypothermia, I can't feel my hands, I can't feel my feet. But if you really center yourself and you bring into that place, you're just initiating yourself into this new state of being, this elevated state. And when for any time that you want to grow, you need to get into these uncomfortable positions, and then it becomes like a reference point. And so many of the guys that have done the sweat and done the ice, and the physical breakthrough, they always say that they're now reference points for them. And when something challenging comes up in their life, they've gone to these depths before, and they know that they can make it through. So they're like, if I can do that, then I can do this. And it's beautiful to watch that and see them really harness that that self-belief and that self-worth through those processes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done. Once again, it feels crucial at any stage of life, but especially, like you said, that the framework most of us have in our culture is, that leavers kind of model. And if you're not doing that, you're an outcast, you're a dork, you're whatever. And to have these types of platforms more readily available for people that are intuiting, I remember the feeling of like, I got into it. I went to Rottnest and I got smashed and I hooked up. But I remember a deep down feeling of like, this doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel right. Even though I was popular and like ladsy and just getting on with all that kind of thing, deep down I was like, we could be doing something so much better. And there was just nothing available, nothing that I knew of. And I don't think there was much available at that time. So it seems what you're doing would be so good to have mega available, which it will with time, for even the younger men that have no role model or no framework of how you can be an empowered, conscious man without needing to go off to, the Himalayas or Tibet or these places where people tend to seek. You can just go to a men's group and a men's course and go deep into what we're truly yearning for, which we can't find on the sports screen or the quick hookup or the beer or that's what most of us have been taught, that's where it's at. And the more you get, the better. And it creates this misery, this misery that if not found, if not nabbed in the bud and found, it just gets worse and worse. And that whole Saturn return thing. How old are you?
31.
Okay, yeah. So you'd be right on the kind of the what would you call it, the tail end of it or something like that. If you look at that,
I had a wild Saturn return. It just ripped my life apart.
Yeah, it's wild,
return,
and like you would have had these tools available, and it was still wild, and like for these guys and women, but it seems very confusing for men in particular if they're either just kind of going down a default of the old masculine model or yearning for the new way. Either way, there can be a lot of misery in it and it can be tumultuous, but to have the support to go deep into it and just to battle through it consciously and wrestle and sweat and get cold and cry and just be vulnerable, just totally necessary. Just awesome.
Yeah.
I had a pretty, I was doing a lot of ayahuasca during my Saturn returns, a lot. That felt like my platform to really just penetrate old conditioning. And it was fierce. It was beautiful but it was fierce, just to look at those old programs, the old conditioning, and just to purge it out, just to burn it up with full consciousness. I mean, that to me feels like the new emerging warrior state that we can access just to, I don't know if you're familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, but it's all about our life being pretty much a battlefield, like a metaphorical battlefield, and facing that inner battle consciously with breath, with sound, with these tools. For me, during that period of the Saturn return, that was it for me. Yoga and ayahuasca, and just so full on.
It's incredible, man. It's amazing that you had that available to you through that process. Hey?
Yeah, it was a beautiful time actually. Like I'd just come out of a long relationship and had lost everything, had no money, just quite lost. Yet all of a sudden I started hearing this ayahuasca conversation coming up, and I was going deeper and deeper into my yoga practice, and it was a beautiful time. It was one of the most beautiful chapters of my life, but full on when you're feeling all those old parts of yourself dying, like who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
Who the fuck am I when there's no model left?
And all the masks are stripped back, and you can have that full identity crisis. Is if I'm not that, then who am I?
Yeah.
And it's just that unraveling deeper, like what are my core beliefs, what are my core values, what I want out of life.
and to have no mask left.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point, really. Like, who am I beyond the mask, even beyond that last veil of the mask, the persona, really, that we still tend to identify as the self.
Yeah.
Who am I even beyond that endless array of potential, pure, endless dimensions of pure potential. I mean, the mind can't even grasp it.
Yeah.
So it's like accessing that and then coming back here where we've still got our norm. That's part of the tricky process, I think. Like, we've still got this dimension of what is the center of gravity and what is considered normal. That integration process.
Yeah. I look at it as the hero's journey. Like, that was coined by Joseph Campbell, but like part of the end side of the hero's journey of like the journey back home, the integration process of like, how are you going to fit back into normality? Like, are you going to fall back into your old way of being, or are you going to allow yourself to change your external environment rather than be the product of your environment? Let your environment be the product of you. Yeah, totally.
Or like Christ said, to be in the world but not of it.
Yeah.
But again, it can be really lonesome. I've heard a lot of students come up and friends like going through that same kind of transformation, and the initial process, one can feel really alone, really like dark night of the soul, alone. I'm the only one going through this, and it's incredibly painful. So to have practices beyond the medicine journey, beyond the yoga class, to integrate it and just to be able to sit by yourself, that in retrospect, those years of being single and kind of living a pretty monastic life actually, was really precious, to be with my aloneness, just to be alone and getting more and more comfortable with that. And then the practice is being able to be with anyone.
That's all. Like, meditation is such a staple practice. Like being comfortable, being with yourself, being comfortable with your breath, even like meditation and silence. Like, you're left with nothing but your thoughts and yourself and your breath, and how comfortable are you actually with yourself. And when I first started meditating, as soon as I closed my eyes, I would just see darkness. I would see like really dark thoughts and feelings and stuff. And I was like, "Wow, this is way too much." And then I realized how little I actually enjoyed sitting with myself and being with myself, and had to really look inwards and really had to find that sense of safety and comfort in this chaos that I was feeling, and had to reclaim that center, that center point in my being. And that was a painful process in doing that. And when you look at yourself in the mirror and you realize you don't like who you're seeing, that's when the journey really starts of unveiling and looking deeper and deeper and deeper until you find that place of self-acceptance and self-love and yeah.
So in your work, do you have like particular practices that help people look at those dark thoughts and the shadows, or is it really just watching? Do you have any particular practices of penetrating that stuff?
Yeah, so we go into like actual shadow work. We're getting them to face into their shadows. So we go into like a bit of a consciousness piece of talking about what their shadow is, and talking about triggers and things like that, and mirror work, so they can kind of get a basic awareness of where their shadows might lie. And then we go into a guided breathwork journey facing into the shadow, and then releasing the shadow through those processes. And I've also done ones with giving your shadow a voice, asking your shadow what it wants, what's beneath it, and going into processes through like that. And I also get all the guys to eye gaze.
Awesome.
First thing they ever do when they come in is they eye gaze, and seeing them. Some people can really hold that presence, some people can't and feel really uncomfortable. But even that in itself is being seen, and a lot of men have that uncomfortability of looking another man in the eyes and not feeling like there's any kind of sexual feelings, or they might have like a fundamental belief that to look another man in the eyes means that you're gay. and which is what, you know, a lot of guys are brought up with, is either that or you're looking at another guy in the eyes, you're going to square off and you're shaping him up and you're seeing like what he's capable of and you're sizing him up and you're seeing him as a threat straight away. So all these different thoughts and beliefs come up for guys as they're starting to eye gaze. And then when we start to open them up a little bit more and breathe deeper into it, like sometimes there's tears, sometimes there's like laughter, and it's just, each experience is always unique to it as well. And we also go into, I found like doing some of the embodiment practice, like especially like wrestling for some of the guys that have never been in a physical fight before, and then having to wrestle another guy will bring up a lot of fear and a lot of things they probably haven't thought about for a long time.
Bringing out his shoulders.
Yeah. I actually had a brother say to me recently that he didn't, he'd never been in a fight, so he didn't know if he actually had enough strength to hold down another guy. And then when he was able to, he was just like, blew him open. He was just reconnecting to that physical strength of himself.
I look forward to getting back into a bit of wrestling. I've been avoiding it for years now because of my shoulders. Like, my shoulders come out, literally just play wrestling with my 5-year-old daughter. Like, it got that unstable that it was coming out in my sleep. It was coming out just playing, let alone the original trauma of it was from getting dumped on surfing into just shallow waves and all that, like intense trauma on the shoulder. But I've avoided that type of contact for so many years now. And I feel nearly ready to start to play around with that again, because I definitely see the benefit of it. It's going to be scary though. It's going to be tricky at first for sure.
Even if you just start off like really something really quite basic, you're just going through technique stuff rather than actually with full force. So that you're still getting that physical contact and you like creating that safety for yourself and realizing, oh shit, I can do it with my shoulder now. And then you can build up the intensity. It's going to be good. Really, primalness.
We need it. We need it again. So many of these podcasts, the conversation of initiation and rite of passage keeps coming up. It feels so necessary. And for men and for women, you know, for women to have these types of platforms to be together and to face old shit and to, you know, even the red tent, that beautiful ceremony to honor that part of each month and their womanhood, and then the menopause period and these rites of passage that just have been long forgotten feel totally necessary for any gender or for any age, for young kids, to that teenage transition to, there's all these different chapters that, you know, in like India, in Hindu belief, like there's still a real set hierarchy, but also a set kind of schedule of your life of transition. And it has pros and cons, no doubt, but it also sets a kind of clear map as to when and how you transition. And because it's often associated with spiritual practices, there's a beautiful elegance to it, not really a toxic kind of imbalance or abuse to it. It's a beautiful, harmonious transition from your childhood into your teenagehood, into your adulthood, into a period of seeking, into a period of earning, into a period of old age and chilling out. It's so kind of blurry for us. Like even the aging thing, it feels like there needs to be another initiation type platform to help people ease into that last chapter, which my beloved teacher Ram Dass is doing a lot of great work on, you know, like bringing the conversation to death and to suffering and to illness and to injury when you can't do the things you love, when you've injured your neck and you can't do the Muay Thai that you love, when you can't even wrestle anymore, when you can't even get out of bed. Like, what practices can I do when I'm absolutely fucked? And he's been such a crucial teacher in that process of not identifying with anything. Like, who am I beyond it all, including my age? And it feels necessary to have those platforms for all those different chapters of our life, huh?
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So what's next for you, man? Where's all your passion going? And do you have any upcoming projects? And
at the moment, so the main things I do is running cacao ceremonies, shamanic breath work, and the brothers work. So next year, looking at expanding the cacao ceremonies and doing them interstate. And for different festivals and different retreats, and whoever's seeking that kind of experience and journey. And when I first began working with cacao, the cacao spirit had come into me. It was actually I think maybe it was your first or your second Flow Festival. I think January was running the ceremony, but the spirit of cacao had entered into my being, and she was like, "Now's the time to offer me into your community, and I'll guide you and I'll show you on how I want you to journey people, and I'll come into your dreams and I'll come into your visions, and I'll show you." And she said, "The way I want you to work with me is through using sacred sounds, through a little meditation and through breath work." And when I first started running, I ran. Me and my buddy Tal was doing like a 2-day workshop, and I said to him, "Oh man, I've got this vision of doing this cacao ceremony. Like, how do you feel about adding this to the very last part of our 2-day workshop?" And he's like, "Man, let's do it. Let's like give it a crack." And then that was like the birth of it. And then each time it's just expanded and expanded, and we've had to go find different venues to fit more people in. And it's just such a beautiful experience, such a heart-opening experience, and just getting a massive call from cacao to really spread that love as wide as I can with her. So that's on the cards with cacao, and that's probably one of everything I do. I love doing, but I absolutely love working within that ceremony. And then the men's work. So I started doing fortnightly men's catch-ups. We got the first one this Sunday. And it's for the guys that have done all my courses, for guys that are looking at finding like conscious brotherhood, for guys that are looking to do more deeper work and just wanting to hang around with more like-minded men that are in that same field and create that really healthy environment for them of masculinity. And so just expanding out through the men's work and running more retreats. I've got a men's retreat next year. And a couple more retreats that me and my partner Sammy are organising for Bali. And then doing a online men's coaching course as well for guys that aren't in Perth. I love doing the in-person transmissions, but I know that there's many men out there that aren't able to get to Perth and that want to experience the work, and just to provide that platform for them to connect and to dive deep into themselves through that process as well. So that's the next big thing as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What do you see as like a reoccurring challenge for men? Do you feel like there's a reoccurring challenge that people voice?
There always seems to be like a theme between each kind of group that they kind of come in, but a lot of them are just wanting like deeper connection. They're wanting more out of life. They're wanting to connect more with their partners. They want to get more onto path and purpose. They want to be able to feel more. They want to feel safe to express how they're feeling. And a lot of them, like I'm finding as well, like with that, especially with the rise of the divine feminine, that's been coming up for a few years now, and it's obviously come up through men, but now the sacred masculine is really kind of is shaking up in both men and women as well, and that's calling a lot of guys to deepen who they are as men, and it's almost like not just reframing, but evolving what it means to be a man. And there's no like one like, this is what it means to be a man, and what it means to be a man is going to be different for each guy individually. And like with guys, I just see that just wanting to open. They want to open up their hearts, and they want to like connect deeper with their sexuality. Want to connect deeper with their primal self. Like especially through Invictus, like you see the guys wanting to learn more about that anger, and either like complete people pleasers, and they want to learn how to cut that off and understand that it's okay to piss people off. Like you're not going to please every single person. And the more and more you get in alignment with who you are and your purpose and your path, you're going to have to say no to someone, and you're going to have to, piss people off on the way, essentially. And you're not going to keep everyone happy, and learning how to, stay centered in who you are and your own belief. And that's that warrior energy that kind of comes in, and it's teaching guys how to, connect their communication center with not just their heart, but their primal center as well, and let them be able to speak authentically for who they are and what they want, and what are they actually fighting for, what are they protecting, who are they serving, and that kind of thing as well. And yeah, I see with men, they're just wanting to open up and expand, and it's like this new wave of this masculine energy that's coming through. And one of the Pedro journeys I had at the start of my trip on this last one, I was just being downloaded with all of this masculine energy, this like the sacred masculine, and like Pedro was showing me how the archetypes of men are the blueprints are shifting and changing. There's like a new evolution to what these collective archetypes are for men, and like so this new paradigm that's shifting through. And then since that had happened, like each man I speak to, you can feel this new sense of masculine wave coming through, and it's like waking something up in every single man. Yeah. And men are always trying to, they're doing the best. I mean, everyone's doing the best that they know how, given the consciousness that they're at. And it's just giving men the space to open up and get into it. And sometimes I have partners of men hit me up and they're like, "Oh, how can I make my man do this? Or how can I do him that?" I'm like, well, for one, don't try and fix your partner, because then you're falling into the unhealthy masculine yourself. But just guide and hold support and safety for him, so he feels safe enough to express himself too. Yeah, the last thing most men, or anyone, but especially that kind of old model of what it is to be a man, a kind of defensive man, the last thing that kind of man wants to hear is, "You need to go fix yourself." Like it's such a just stab into the guts. That intense defensiveness. And I remember that running deep in me, and there's still residue of it. It's amazing. Like when I'm tired or like just not in alignment, that old residue of defensiveness, of denial, and like, not wanting to be told you're wrong, or just that old one-upmanship. And it's thick in our culture. It's so thick. And even though I've done so much work on it, undoubtedly there's still residue of it, because it's a collective thing. It's still around, 100%, yeah. That's one of the things I love, introducing that breath work for the guys, and it's one of the quickest ways for men to tap into their emotional body. And for one, like with breath work, you're the one that's doing the work. No one's going to be doing it for you. So it's a great tool to bring in through empowerment into people, because they're not just going to lay there and magically they're going to be fixed. They have to do the work. They have to breathe in a certain way they have to consciously be doing the work, right? And so for men, when they're tapping into that way through breath work, like all these old pent up emotions are just like coming out, and there's some that are just like, the whole room's just screaming like these like all white, like really deep grief and really deep wails and tears, and it's like heavy energy, and you just feel that it's like ancestral, it's generational, it's like stuff coming out from the unconscious collective, and it's I absolutely love breath work with men. It's I can do breath work with everyone, but it's one of the quickest ways I've seen men really drop in and release and allow that to integrate and really shift who they are as a person. And it's like breathwork is like helps to disintegrate the ego. It's like the ego eradicator. It allows you to shift into your unconscious. The ego gets put out of the way and allows you a complete clear guidance to source, to God, to spirit, or whatever you want to call it. And it's such a beautiful process to witness. And
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Breathwork is potent and so much more efficient than just thinking and talking. Like the breath unifies all those aspects of ourselves that are so often separated from our mind, with our mind. Our mind separates all these different dimensions of our being. You follow the breath, or you do a particular breath technique that helps wake up the central axis and unify. And it unlocks our natural state so quick. And people experience that naturally all the time when they're making love. Naturally, their breath changes rhythm. Maybe they're breathing a bit quicker. Maybe they're doing like a breath of fire type thing. And then they start to climax and they start to bring it up to the heart. Maybe if they're able to, but there's undoubtedly a flowing of energy that naturally happens when we're in nature. That kind of aha, people naturally like what a relief. Like the breath does it to everyone anytime. So it's so primal and primordial and readily available. People are used to it all the time. Yeah. When they do a big dump, they're just letting go of a whole lot of shit, literally.
Yeah.
We do it all the time, every day. So to do that with a framework, with instruction, with a context, where to send the breath, it's so easy, and instantly catapults the mind into nowhere or everywhere, or the heart, or that multi-dimensional nature that often gets unlocked through the psychedelic experience can be unlocked just with breath work, just with the breath.
Yeah, a couple of years back, I was sitting with Aya, and I asked her how could I bring this magic back to Perth or back to our community without them having to drink ayahuasca. And she said, "Let me show you, my dear." And she put me flat on my back, and then she's like, "Just breathe with me." And then she just took me into this breathwork experience during it. She's like, "This is how you're going to bring my energy back into the world." And then after that, I started practicing within myself, and started practicing on my partner, started working with a few clients, and then brought it into the men's work, and then my last, when was I can't remember, the one before maybe, I had this vision of bringing in the sacred sounds with the breath to help take that journey even deeper. So I use like a looping pedal, a looping station, to create like put in like almost like a trance state with the rhythmic of the sounds and the didge and the flutes and the voice. And then when I was visiting the Cataquina tribe in Brazil early this year, and we were sitting at this big Samuma tree. This tree is like 950 years old, and it's like ingrained into their myth, into their culture. And we were having like a big harpe ceremony around there, and then the shaman, the page, which is what they call a shaman, gave me a big ceremonial dose of this Samuma harpe. And it's a really, really powerful one. And as he blew it into me, just the words like shaman's breath, came into me. It's like that the breath of the shaman, that connection to spirit, to source, to everything, and that breath that we have within ourselves. And it was like in a flash, it was like connect all of this together, and then bring it back. And it's incredible. And so we've been running out these breathwork journeys for guys, men and women, in Perth, and we had our last one for the year on Saturday just gone. And it's just incredible just to watch this like community of people that just all coming together collectively to breathe, to let go, to release, and to breathe a new state of being into existence. And it's like being reborn every single time you're breathing. And it's incredible. Like we can use breath to release, to bring up sexual energy, to manifest, to connect, to ground into the earth. So breath is just absolutely amazing.
Totally. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard the stories, whether they're fact or fiction, of the ancient yogis, the rishis in the Himalayas. They were, again, story or fact. I don't know. I take it as with a grain of salt, but I appreciate it. These yogis, like the original yogis, you could say, were eating mushrooms, the soma, the elixir of the gods. And then they started traveling down through all the various villages and so forth, and they could no longer find the soma, the mushroom. So myth tells us that these yogis then started to develop breath work, pranayama, sound work, nada, these yogic techniques. So even before like asana, all the various poses and whatnot, apparently, again, whether it's fact or fiction, they were having these psychedelic experiences with soma and then couldn't find it anymore. So then started working with the breath, working with sound, meditation, contemplation, and unlocking these mystical experiences that were on par with when they were having the elixir, the mushrooms. So, and then all the various asanas got developed over time. But before that, it was breath work, pranayama, and sound work, like mantra. Like all those mantras, like the language of Sanskrit was developed, the perfected language to kind of like a didgeridoo, to create this vibration through your vertical axis, through your subtle body, through your causal body, through your physical body to wake us up. So these mantras, even just om or humming or whatever, vibrates everywhere. So what you're doing essentially is yoga without you even realizing it. You're calling it shaman's breath, and it is that, but it's also a yogic experience of using breath work and sound to create transformation, you know. And, have you heard that of the rishis before?
No, it's very, very fascinating though. Like I would say it sounds a lot more fact than fiction from what I believe, but it's absolutely incredible. I could definitely see that happening. And
some fundamentalists that don't think yogis should have psychedelics defend that it's just fiction, that it's not fact. Because there is that whole movement of you're a yogi, you don't consume anything that alters you, and a kind of fundamentalist attitude of like you got to do it yourself, which I can actually appreciate. I've gone through a phase of that. Like I remember having the belief of like, if you take a psychedelic to enter these states, you're cheating, you know, until I experienced it. And then I was like, you know what, there's total validity to this if used with discernment and intelligence and with a healthy context, a healthy platform. It can totally just deepen your sadhana, deepen your practice. But there is a movement of taking it all very very seriously, and a lot of judgment in it, and kind of like the war against left and right, you know, the war against whatever, up and down, transcendental versus descending, like all these kind of mini microcosmic wars against opposites creeps into the yoga world as well.
Wow. I mean, like psychedelics aren't for everyone as well, so but Yogi Bhajan's he's very, very strict on that, isn't he, with non-psychedelic practice and being able to develop within yourself and all of that. So, and
again, I appreciate that. I actually do, because you can, create that flow of psychedelic chemistry through your own body with enough breath work, enough sound, enough paying of attention. You can unlock those mystical experiences, undoubtedly. Yeah. So I appreciate that. At the same time, we've got these incredible medicines available.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, like, I definitely appreciate it. And when I first got into psychedelics, I never wanted to do mushrooms or anything when I was younger. I always had this fear that I was going to go psychotic if I ever took any kind of psychedelic. And the only reason why I went and drank ayahuasca because I'd heard that it could help with depression, and I wasn't even thinking about any kind of mystical experience or anything like that. I was just like, I need to find resolve to what I'm going through. And then the mystical experience came from that and just like blasted me open to the cosmos and to the earth. But I mean, I respect everyone's path and what they choose to do, and there's no right or wrong. It's just what's true to you, and you follow that, and you follow your own belief for that. And because if you believe so deeply that that's the way, then you're going to get a lot more out of your journey rather than if you're like trying to force something that you don't wholeheartedly believe. Yeah,
it feels like that will be a quality of this emerging, healthy, conscious masculine to not need to hate on or let alone kill someone that doesn't believe in your belief system.
Yeah.
It's been going on for so long, and it's still happening. This insane tribalism that if you're not in my club, fuck you.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'm enjoying about this. Like, we've never hung out. You're doing your own, like, in a way, you're kind of doing a similar thing, but a completely different thing. Like, that old mentality would kind of be like trying to create this divide because we're in similar roles. And you could say in one aspect, like there's a competitive aspect, like in a way, you know, like you're trying to get people to your workshop. I'm trying to get people to like,
yeah.
So from that old vantage point, I'd be like, fuck you, you're not coming over, man. Like, so it feels like this emergence of the conscious masculine. It's like, sure, but like we don't see eye to eye, and you believe this is good, and I believe that's good. Like, but we can still get along, you know?
And this is what happens between people. They feel like they have to agree with everything that their partner says, because if I disagree with you, then that means I don't like you, or that means like I'm like, well, fuck off, whatever.
Yeah.
But we need to understand that we can have disagreements. We can disagree about a certain topic, but it doesn't mean that we don't like each other. We just have different beliefs, and that's fine. Like, still be open to the discussion, still be open to what it is, but you don't have to hate each other. And a lot of like, not like country wars, but a lot of like kind of like personal wars will begin from that point of like disagreement, and then being like, well, fuck you. Rather than being like, well, okay, like we're allowed to disagree, and that doesn't mean that I hate you. And I might feel emotionally charged from you disagreeing with me, but like, what is that showing me internally? Like, is it that I feel like I'm not being seen? Do I feel like I'm not being heard? I feel like I'm not being appreciated? Like, where's that? If we're having that emotional charge inside, then it's pointing towards ourselves, and we can be like, well, how can I evolve? How can I bring that into integration, back to the path of wholeness and unity?
And as you're talking about that, you're pointing right into your gut, which is perfect and interesting, because that's where we feel it. That kind of gut wrenching, like, oh, like you feel it in your gut when you're feeling hurt or put down, like, oh. And in yogic languaging, there's a metaphysical knot right here called the ahamkara, and it's like the knotting of the ego, and that's where we've been identified with for so long. And all this energy, like in our genitals to here, is just blocking all the energy to the heart. And even physically, you can see it and feel it when it pulls people in.
Yeah, the collapse of the posture.
Collapsed posture. Yeah. So this tension from the frontal lobes down to the gut, down to the hips. And there's just no room to see it from a broad perspective, like you just said, to be able to go, oh shit, yeah, that hurts, and whew, like it doesn't feel good to not be validated or to not be praised, or like to be honest with that and go, fuck, it hurts, like, oh, like you can feel it, just pulling the gut. But then like the breath work, being able to penetrate that knotting, the ahamkara right here with the breath, with awareness, like honesty. That becomes fuel for the fire, and then you can like open through it. But it's challenging, man. Like when that gut pulls tight, and you don't have the tools or the regular conversation, the revisiting of it. The easiest thing to do, the kind of normal thing to do, is just to succumb to that and get sucked into our melodrama. And it feels so real,
especially when it's from like someone that we really care about, or like a loved one, or and then we value their opinion so deeply that it can really, really affect us, and we just we close off, and our shoulders, our chest sinks in as well, our hearts close off, and we get that posture, just that process of feeling safe and that openness, and it's that new wave of the warrior energy that's coming through, and I kind of see it as like, not like the Vikings, but like when you see like old warriors that all have their armor and stuff on, you see the Vikings and they've got like just bare chested, right? And it's that same kind of new wave of masculinity that's coming through for the warriors, that you got to be bare chested, being open in that space of being so vulnerable, but being so fierce and strong in who you are, that you don't need that external armor to protect you. Like you have full trust and faith in yourself, and everything else that's happening around you. Yeah.
Yeah, well put. Another way I like to look at it is like the tension we create. The tension here, the tension at the back of the shoulders. It's like an armor, you know, and it feels scary to observe the tension and not just get sucked into the tension and not just keep it trapped. It's like these little drug addictions, keeping the tension there. Like it feels falsely safe.
Yeah.
Like keep the tension there, like that fight or flight kind of gripping, and to like let go of that tension, or just to watch the tension, breathe into the tension, can feel really scary for people.
100%.
To disarm, you know.
Yeah, and we can we always go back to what's comfortable, and sometimes what's comfortable for us is being in pain or being in chaos, and we'll just keep retracting back into that. And when we really own that and be like, fuck, we got to really face this. And some of the scariest things is, like you said, to like be open and being like, and it could revert back to childhood of last time I was this open, I was bullied or I got made fun of, or like a girl rejected me. So then all of a sudden you're like, oh, if I'm open, then I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to be disowned. I'm not going to be...
Let alone actual unsafe places where people are getting shot and stabbed. And like, I mean, my upbringing, there wasn't any of that lack of safety. I felt very safe. But even in that, safety net, still created the tension, the fear of getting not approved, the fear of not being liked, the fear, all those fears that can create just as much tension as if like people were walking around with knives and guns. Yeah. Same kind of tension. It's wild. We create it with our mind.
That old emotional residue, hey, and just being like,
So these workshops are exciting, man. I'm really impressed with that you're using these tools and really downloading and bringing forth these powerful support platforms for people and these experiences for people to find it within and find their autonomy as well. Because what's super common in medicine communities and spiritual communities is, again, that feeling of disempowerment, that lack of autonomy, needing that person to feel some relief, needing that person to bring the ecstatic feeling. So you have brought into the conversation a few times today that integration, that integral kind of, I don't think you said autonomy, but I really love that you're paying extra attention to that.
Thank you.
So good work, huh?
Yeah, I just love empowering people and guiding themselves into their own truth, and to know that they have it within themselves. And sometimes we need that assistance to go into that depth. But once we go into that depth, then we release and we know where we can do it ourselves, and we can, our breath we're always connected to our breath. And it's just the same with the hero's journey. Every time plant medicine journey, our different situations in life, all go through the cycle of the hero's journey, and we're always finding that gold and that gift to bring back to our community. And how can we offer that back to help others and not just ourselves? How can we be of service and empowering ourselves, empowering others? And as we do that for ourselves, we're unconsciously shining light on others and helping them lift themselves up too, and showing them the way. And sometimes people just need a leader to show them the way, and then they become a leader in themselves, and they end up leading themselves. You don't always have to be a leader. You don't always have to lead others. You can just lead yourself into where you want to be, where you want to do, and create your life however you want to. This world is full of magic if we open up our eyes, open up our ears, open up our senses, open up our heart, connect to the earth, connect to spirit, connect to each other. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Sure is. Been great to hang out, Tim.
Thank you, my
You're
brother.
a legend. Yeah. Great work. Everyone listening, everyone watching, I'll leave links below to Tim's work. Stay in touch, leave comments. Follow this great man's work, and we'll keep in touch. Until next time, Tim.
Thank you,
much love, everyone. Bye for now.